All right, let's dive in. We're tackling Gigachad today.
Oh yeah, Gigachad.
You know that, that super masculine internet guy?
Right, right, the ultimate Chad.
Yeah, and we're going to figure out, is he actually attractive to women, or is that just like a guy thing?
A guy thing. Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Like, do those exaggerated features actually translate to attractiveness?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's find out.
We're going deep on this article called Women Don't Find Gigachad Attractive Date Psychology.
Interesting.
And it's by this guy, Alexander, who has a master's in, cognitive and behavioral neuroscience.
Okay, so he knows his stuff.
Yeah, so we're in good hands.
Right.
And he actually ran a survey asking men and women to rate Gigachad's looks.
Oh, wow. What'd they say?
Well, the results are kind of wild.
Okay, listener.
Women gave him an average score of 3.58 out of 7.
Ooh, below average.
Yeah, not great.
Not a Chad score.
Definitely not a Chad score. But men rated him, way higher, almost a 5 out of 7.
Really?
Well,
so right away, we're seeing, a huge difference in perception here.
yeah, a huge difference.
Interesting.
But it gets even more interesting when you look at, the actual breakdown.
Okay, break it down for me.
Less than 25% of the women thought Gigachad was an actual Chad, but almost half of the men gave him top scores.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know, right? And when you look at the density plots that he included, it's like women are like, nope, and then men are like, all in.
Yeah, it's like two completely different worlds.
Yeah, so is beauty just totally subjective then?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
There's this concept in research called inter-rater agreement, which basically looks at how much people agree on attractiveness. And studies have shown that there's a pretty high level of agreement on average ratings,
Okay.
meaning certain features are generally considered more attractive across different cultures.
Okay, so there are some universal beauty standards.
Yeah, to an extent, but here's where it gets tricky.
Uh-oh, what's the catch?
The catch is that individual agreement on specific faces is much lower than those average readings suggest.
Okay, so we agree on the general idea of beauty.
Right.
But when it comes to specific people, it's all bets are off.
Exactly. Like one study by Honeycutt back in 2006 found that people disagree on who's attractive way more than we think we do.
Really?
Yeah, and another study in 2015 by Germain and a bunch of other researchers, they found the same thing.
So, even if Gigachad gets high marks from some people, there are going to be tons of others who just aren't feeling it.
Precisely. It's all about individual preferences.
This is so interesting.
It is.
Okay, so that brings us to this question of masculinity.
Oh, yeah.
Gigachad is almost a caricature of masculinity, right?
For sure.
So is that actually what women find attractive?
Well, it's a good question.
Yeah.
And to answer, we need to talk about something called sexual dimorphism.
Sexual dimorphism, what is that?
It's basically the physical differences between men and women.
Okay.
Think stronger jaws in men, more prominent brows.
It's men are just generally more robust looking.
Exactly. And while research has consistently shown that men find feminine features attractive in women,
Right.
the findings on masculine features in men are a lot more complicated.
Wait, so maybe women aren't automatically into those super masculine features?
That's what the research suggests.
Wow, that's interesting.
It is.
So why do we think that women prefer those super masculine features?
Well, part of the reason might be how these studies are done.
Okay.
A lot of them use edited photos to make faces more or less masculine.
So they're not looking at real faces.
Right, they're manipulating images.
Wouldn't that make the results kind of unreliable? I mean, a real face is different from a photoshopped one.
You're absolutely right to be skeptical of those studies.
Okay, good.
And there have been studies that use natural, unedited photos, and they often found that women didn't necessarily prefer the super masculine faces. Some even showed a preference for more feminine features, especially when thinking about long-term relationships.
So it's not just about how masculine a face is, but also what someone's looking for in a partner.
Exactly. It's about the context.
Okay, so context matters.
Huge.
All right, tell me more about this context stuff.
Well, think about it. A woman's own preferences, her relationship status, even her environment, these can all play a role in what she finds attractive.
So our preferences aren't set in stone. They can change.
Absolutely.
Wow.
There was this great study by Penton Voke and some other researchers back in 2003.
Okay.
They found that women who felt vulnerable in their environment actually preferred less masculine faces.
Really?
Yeah, it was like those exaggerated features were actually seen as kind of threatening.
That's crazy. So, like, our sense of safety can actually influence who we find attractive.
Precisely. It shows how attraction isn't just about superficial features. It's this complex interplay of biology, psychology, and our surroundings.
Man, this is fascinating.
It is.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface here.
Yeah, we've got a lot more to uncover.
Okay, so what else did Alexander find in his research?
Well, we haven't even talked about the role of facial hair.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Are you telling me beards are the key to understanding all of this?
Well, maybe not the key, but they definitely play a role.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
But before we get into that, let's take a moment to just process all this information about masculinity and context.
Yeah, this is a lot to tape in.
Right. I bet you've got some thoughts brewing already.
Oh, for sure. All right, let's talk beards.
Okay, let's do it.
I gotta admit, I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah.
Is there really all this, like, science behind whether or not a little stubble makes someone more attractive?
Oh, there's a ton of research on this.
Really?
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Okay.
Remember how we were talking about how a woman's preferences can change depending on the type of relationship she's looking for?
Yeah, like the whole bag boy versus, like, settling down thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the classic theory is called the dual mating hypothesis. But there's this newer idea called the mate switching hypothesis.
Mate switching.
Yeah, it kind of flips the script.
Okay, how so?
Well, it suggests that even when a woman is looking for something casual, she might still be subconsciously evaluating a guy's long-term potential.
Oh, so even for a fling, she's still thinking, could I see myself with this guy down the road?
Exactly.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and this ties into something called the trade-off theory.
Okay, what's that?
Well, it suggests that those super masculine features, they can signal both positive and negative qualities.
Okay, I'm seeing how this connects to beards.
Yeah,
Like a beard could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you look at it.
exactly. On one hand, a beard might be seen as a sign of maturity,
Okay.
health, dominance even.
Yeah, I can see that. Like a well-groomed beard can make a guy look more put together and
Right.
look confident.
Exactly. But on the other hand, a beard could also be perceived as aggressive or intimidating.
Okay, so it's a gamble.
Kinda, yeah. It really depends on the individual and the context.
So where do beards actually fall on this spectrum of attractive or not?
Well, studies show that women generally prefer some facial hair over a clean-shaven face, particularly stubble.
Stubble. Really? Like not a full beard?
Yes, stubble seems to be the sweet spot.
Interesting.
And it's not just a modern thing either. This preference shows up in research on both short-term and long-term relationships.
Wow. So why is stubble so appealing? Is there like some evolutionary reason?
There are a few theories floating around.
Okay.
Some researchers think stubble strikes a balance. It signals maturity and masculinity without being overly aggressive.
So the Goldilocks amount of masculinity.
Exactly. And there's this study from 2019 by Dixon and some colleagues. They found that mothers and postpartum women were especially drawn to bearded men.
Really?
Yeah, it's like there's this subconscious link between beards and paternal investment.
So maybe this preference goes way back.
It seems that way.
Okay, but what about Gigachad? He had stubble in that photo we were talking about, right?
Did, yeah.
So was the beard working in his favor?
It's possible. But remember, his overall look was still extremely exaggerated.
True.
It makes you wonder, is there a point where those super masculine features become too much?
Yeah, is there like a tipping point?
Right. Could Gigachad's features actually be working against him?
That's a great question.
Yeah, like maybe his features are so over the top they come off as more cartoonish.
Yeah, too perfect to be real.
Exactly.
Oh,
So there's definitely something to be said for finding that sweet spot.
not too much, not too little.
Right.
But beyond beards and masculinity, I think it's important to bring this back to the listener.
Yes, absolutely.
What can we all learn from this? Should I be growing out my stubble and hitting the gym to, like, chisel my jawline?
Not necessarily.
Okay, good.
Alexander actually talks about something he calls the white pill of facial attractiveness research.
The white pill, what is that?
It's basically this really reassuring reminder
Okay.
that those average attractiveness ratings we were talking about, they don't tell the whole story.
Okay.
Individual preferences are way more important.
Oh, so even if I don't look like Gigachad, there's still hope for me.
Absolutely. The high variation in those ratings means that pretty much everyone will be found attractive by someone.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah. And that's a really empowering thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's like permission to just, like, stop worrying so much.
Exactly. And we've been focusing on faces, but Attraction is about so much more than just physical features.
Yeah, it's about connection, personality.
Right, shared interests.
So instead of trying to change your appearance, just focus on being the best version of yourself.
Yeah, be authentic. That's what's really going to draw the right people to you.
Great advice.
Thanks.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
From the science of attraction to the mystery of beards.
And the importance of individuality.
Yeah, but before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question. We started this whole thing looking at Gigachad and how differently men and women rated him.
Yeah, he really sparked some debate.
He did. And after all this research, I'm kind of curious, what do you think was going on there?
I think it shows that men and women might not see eye to eye when it comes to attractiveness.
Yeah.
Like the fact that men rated Gigachad so much higher, it makes you wonder, is there a disconnect between what guys think is hot and what women actually find attractive?
That's a good point, and I feel like that's a pretty important takeaway for anyone out there dating.
Absolutely.
Like, you can't just focus on what you find attractive. You got to think about the other person's perspective, too.
Exactly. Communication is key.
Yeah.
And self-awareness.
Be open to feedback.
Yeah. Don't assume your preferences are universal.
And be willing to, like, adapt.
Right. Meet in the middle.
So find that sweet spot where your style and what the other person likes kind of come together.
Exactly. And while looks are definitely a factor,
Yeah.
they're not the only thing that matters.
Right. Compatibility.
Your values.
That emotional connection.
All those things are essential for a strong relationship.
So to everyone listening out there, don't stress about trying to reach some impossible standard of beauty.
Yeah. Be yourself.
Focus on being the best version of you, inside and out.
And remember, there's someone out there for everyone
Yeah, someone who'll appreciate your unique qualities.
who will find you irresistible for all the right reasons.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of attraction.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey.
I hope everyone listening learned something new.
And maybe even challenge some of their own ideas about beauty.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
See ya!